In the heart of Medellin, where money flowed faster than blood, one man ruled with fear, loyalty, and unimaginable power: Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria. But what the world often forgets is that Escobar did not build his empire alone. Behind every assassination, every billion-dollar shipment, every war against the Colombian state were the men who stood beside him: his planners, his killers, his strategists, his brothers, his protectors, his most trusted shadows. Some worshipped him as a god, others feared him more than the government, and a few, just a few, would one day become the reason for his downfall. Tonight, we go deep into the empire built not just by Escobar himself, but by the men who risked everything to stand at his right hand. This is the unseen machinery behind the Medellin Cartel, the loyalty, the betrayal, the blood, and the legacy that still haunts Latin America today. Welcome to the complete truth behind Escobar's closest men and his right hand. The rise of the Medellin Cartel, a brotherhood of crime. Before Escobar became a billionaire criminal mastermind, he needed a team, men who could move drugs, silence witnesses, bribe officials, and wage war. These were not ordinary criminals. They were street-smart, fearless, and loyal to the core. In the late 1970s, Escobar hand-picked his earliest circle from the streets of Envigado and Medellin, choosing men who understood his vision: a global cocaine empire. This crew was built on loyalty first, money second. Those who hesitated never made it past the first meeting. It was here that he met the men who would shape history with him: his cousin, Gustavo Gaviria, the ruthless sicario John Jairo Velasquez, Popeye, and his trusted pilot, Carlos Later. Each had a role, each had a purpose. Together, they turned cocaine trafficking from a small-scale operation into a multinational machine worth billions of dollars. Escobar wasn't building a gang, he was assembling an army. And these men weren't just employees, they were family, a brotherhood ready to die for him and kill for him. Gustavo Gaviria, the brain behind the empire. If Escobar was the face of the Medellin Cartel, Gustavo Gaviria was the brain silently turning gears behind the scenes. Calm, calculating, and deeply loyal, Gustavo handled the most delicate part of the empire, the finances. While Escobar played the role of Robin Hood and national figure, Gustavo ensured every shipment, every stash house, and every dollar made it back safely to the cartel. He was not violent by nature, but he understood the game better than anyone. Gustavo kept Escobar grounded, reminding him of long-term strategy over impulsive violence. Some say Gustavo was the only man Escobar ever truly listened to. Their bond went beyond business. They grew up together, trusted each other without question, and built an empire that no one thought was possible. But this closeness also made Gustavo a target. Eventually, Gustavo's influence became so high that the authorities marked him as dangerous as Escobar himself. His death would shake the Medellin Cartel to its core and ignite a more brutal chapter of Escobar's reign. But during his life, Gustavo was the silent architect who made Escobar king. Carlos Later, the maniac pilot, who built the cocaine highway among Escobar's circle, none were as unpredictable or as brilliant as Carlos Later. Half German, half Colombian, and fully insane according to many who knew him, Later revolutionized the cartel's smuggling operations. He didn't just fly planes, he built a drug superhighway in the sky. With charisma and madness combined, Later purchased the small Bahamian island of Norman's Cay, turning it into a fully militarized cocaine hub. This island became the cartel's front door to the United States. Planes loaded with cocaine took off daily, earning billions. Later's ambition grew dangerously large. He wanted to start a political revolution, imagining himself a Che Guevara of cocaine. For Escobar, this was both impressive and risky. Later was a genius, but an unstable one. His loud mouth and radical speeches attracted too much attention. Eventually, he became a liability. The U.S. zeroed in, and Escobar reluctantly let him fall. But later's contribution was already immortal. He built the logistical backbone that turned the Medellin Cartel into a global empire. Popeye, the cartel's deadliest enforcer. John Jairo Velasquez, known worldwide as Popeye, was Escobar's most feared sicario, and the man who would one day confess to over 300 murders and involvement in more than 3,000 killings. Yet to Escobar, Popeye was more than a soldier. He was trusted like a son. Loyalty was everything to Popeye. He believed in Escobar's cause as if it were a religion. When Escobar needed a message sent, through fear or blood, Popeye delivered. He plotted bombings, assassinations, kidnappings, and political attacks with near-military precision. Popeye wasn't just violent, he was disciplined, strategic, and dedicated entirely to Escobar's survival. Even during the darkest times, when the government closed in, when rival cartels threatened, when the world was collapsing, Popeye never turned on Escobar. Decades later, he would say, "If Escobar ordered it, I did it." His loyalty made him indispensable, but also made him a prime suspect. When the empire finally fell, Popeye surrendered. But his stories remain legendary, a chilling reminder of how far devotion to one man can go. The Ochoa brothers, pillars of wealth and power. While Escobar brought ruthlessness and Gustavo brought intelligence, the Ochoa brothers brought something equally valuable: money, connections, and international influence. Jorge Luis, Fabio, and Juan David Ochoa were polished businessmen long before they were traffickers. They came from a wealthy family and saw cocaine as a profitable business opportunity. A risky one, yes, but one that could elevate them beyond traditional wealth. Escobar relied heavily on the Ochoas for financing early operations and managing international contacts, especially in the United States and Europe. Their ranches, businesses, and legitimate companies served as fronts for money laundering. While Escobar thrived on public attention and showmanship, the Ochoas preferred silence, staying out of the limelight. They were cautious and more diplomatic than Escobar, often acting as negotiators in cartel conflicts. Their cooperation strengthened the Medellin Cartel deeply, but their fear of escalating violence eventually made them step back. Still, without the Ochoas' money and resources, Escobar's empire would have taken far longer to rise, and possibly would never have reached global dominance. El Chopo and La Kika, the men who carried out Escobar's wrath. When Escobar needed the impossible done, rival bosses killed, judges eliminated, planes blown from the sky, he turned to his most ruthless hitmen, El Chopo and La Kika. These men had reputations even fellow sicarios feared. El Chopo was an expert in disappearances. Once he handled a problem, nothing remained. No body, no evidence, no trace. Many of Escobar's deadliest secrets died with him. La Kika, on the other hand, was a bomb specialist accused of orchestrating one of the most horrifying attacks in Colombian history, the bombing of Avianca Flight 203. To Escobar, these men were his weapons, tools to execute terror and maintain dominance. Their loyalty wasn't rooted in love like Popeye's. Theirs was rooted in fear, money, and the cartel code of silence. These hitmen played a key role in Escobar's war against the state, lawmakers, and rival cartels. But their actions would also bring unprecedented fury from governments worldwide. The violence they unleashed would contribute to the Medellin Cartel's downfall. Jorge Salcedo and the double agents, betrayal. Begins not all of Escobar's close men were truly loyal. Some were double agents, working with U.S. agencies or rival cartels while pretending loyalty. Among them, Jorge Salcedo, originally part of the Cali cartel's security team, played a key role in gathering intelligence on Escobar during the final manhunt. Salcedo was brilliant, strategic, and knew how to move in the shadows. Although not Escobar's man, he had access to information that shaped the Medellin-Cali war. His work with American agencies, eventually contributed to major strikes against Escobar's networks. But he wasn't the only traitor. Within Escobar's own circle, whispers began. Lower-level lieutenants grew tired of constant war. Families were terrified, loyalties cracked. When Escobar started killing those he suspected of betrayal, paranoia spread like wildfire. Some men secretly cooperated with Los Pepes, a vigilante group backed by the Cali cartel and Colombian authorities. Betrayal wasn't just coming from enemies, it was born inside his own circle. The empire built on loyalty now began crumbling from within. Rodrigo Lara's assassination, the first domino falls. In 1984, Escobar made one of his most fatal decisions, ordering the assassination of Justice Minister Rodrigo Lara Bonilla, a man determined to expose and destroy the Medellin Cartel. Escobar believed removing Lara would protect the cartel. Instead, it awakened the fury of the Colombian government. The hit was executed flawlessly, but its consequences were catastrophic. Overnight, Escobar became the nation's most wanted criminal. The government declared total war, allowing U.S. support in extradition cases. The era of hunting Escobar began, and the dominoes started falling. Inside Escobar's circle, fear grew. His closest men realized the future was now uncertain. The government was stronger, the intelligence operations sharper, and Escobar was now a direct target. This moment also marked a shift in power. Escobar moved from being a businessman criminal to a warlord. His men supported him, but many privately questioned the decision. The assassination united the Colombian state, military, rival cartels, and foreign agencies against him. The bullet that killed Lara also pierced the Medellin cartel's invincibility. La Catedral, Escobar's golden prison and silent throne room. When Escobar agreed to surrender in 1991, his closest men were shocked, but he had a plan. La Catedral, a luxury prison built on his own terms. Equipped with gardens, bars, a waterfall, telephones, and even a nightclub, La Catedral was less a prison and more a fortress. From inside, Escobar ran the cartel with the same authority as before. His top lieutenants visited freely, holding meetings and coordinating operations. But something changed. Power slowly centralized around Escobar alone. Gustavo was gone, later captured, and the Ochoas were distancing themselves. New men rose in influence, some not as loyal as the old guard. Jealousies grew, tensions increased. Escobar, once surrounded by brothers, was now surrounded by opportunists. When Escobar tortured and killed two of his own men inside La Catedral, the government could no longer turn a blind eye. They moved to transfer him, but Escobar escaped. This marked the end of his reign as a king and the beginning of his life as a hunted fugitive. His close circle would never be the same again. Los Pepes, the hit squad that hunted Escobar's men. As Escobar fled La Catedral and went into hiding, a new terror emerged. Los Pepes, a vigilante group funded by the Cali cartel, ex-paramilitaries, and even elements within Colombian security forces. Their mission was simple: destroy Escobar by eliminating everyone who still supported him. Los Pepes targeted his accountants, drivers, lawyers, family friends, and even distant cousins. Safe houses were burned, families tortured, properties destroyed. Escobar's closest men now faced a terrifying choice: run, switch sides, or die. Some surrendered, some joined Los Pepes to save themselves. Popeye remained loyal, but his power was limited. The once unbreakable brotherhood now shattered under the pressure of fear. For the first time, Escobar realized he no longer controlled his world. His men were being hunted like animals, and every death weakened him further. Los Pepes didn't just attack bodies, they attacked loyalty. And once loyalty died, Escobar's empire died with it. Hunted. The fall of Escobar's inner circle. By late 1993, Escobar's closest circle was practically gone. His right-hand men were dead, captured, or had switched sides. Communication was broken, safe houses unreliable, every phone call traced, every movement is monitored. For the man who once commanded thousands, Escobar now had fewer than a dozen loyal men left. Some were childhood friends, still refusing to abandon him. Others stayed out of fear or moral debt, but their numbers were too small to protect him. Escobar lived in constant motion, switching hideouts, sleeping on dirty mattresses, losing weight, and losing patience. The empire was gone. The money was drying up. The streets he once owned now belonged to the police and Los Pepes. Still, Escobar clung to hope. He believed his closest men would rebuild the network, regroup, and restore his power. But the truth was undeniable. The world had changed. The last phone call, loyalty, until the end. On December 2nd, 1993, Escobar made a call to his family, a call that would seal his fate. The Colombian search block traced the signal within minutes. While Escobar panicked, one man stayed firmly at his side. El Limon, his final remaining loyal bodyguard. El Limon wasn't a strategist, assassin, or politician. He was simply loyal, a man who stayed when everyone else fled. Together, they tried to escape across the rooftops of Los Olivos. It was a desperate attempt, a final sprint for survival. But the circle was gone. The empire dismantled. The brotherhood was destroyed. Escobar fell under government bullets, his body lying lifeless on a rooftop that overlooked the city he once controlled. El Limon died beside him, a symbolic end to the loyalty that built the Medellín Cartel. The men who once shaped the world with Escobar were nowhere near him in the end. Some watched the news in prison cells, some celebrated his death, others simply disappeared. The brotherhood was officially over. Legacy. The men who built a myth today. Pablo Escobar remains a global legend, misunderstood, romanticized, feared. But his true power never came from myths. It came from the men who stood beside him, men who built the logistics, executed the missions, laundered the money, protected the empire, and ultimately shaped history. Gustavo was the architect, Leder the innovator, Popeye the executioner, the Ochoas the financiers, El Chopo and La Kika the agents of terror, Salcedo and others the betrayers. Each played a role in the rise and destruction of one of the most powerful criminal organizations in history. Their legacies are complicated, marked by brilliance and brutality, loyalty and betrayal, fear and ambition. Without them, Escobar would have been just another street criminal. With them, he became a global phenomenon, a dark legend woven into the fabric of crime history. In the end, their stories remind us of one truth: no empire is built alone, and no empire falls alone. The untold stories wait for you. If you want more deep cinematic documentaries like this, filled with secrets, betrayals, and the hidden shadows behind history's most infamous figures, then make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Tell us in the comments, which cartel figure, gangster, or historical icon should we uncover next? Your next documentary begins the moment you hit subscribe.